Remember when the History Channel was actually about history and not about pawn shops, picking for antiques, or any of the other countless crap staged reality shows that has come to dominate the network? Well, believe it or not, there actually was a time and when the History Channel was about just that. History, and a major part of the programming was about military history. And I loved this as a kid growing up. I've seen hundreds of war documentaries or investigative shows, and they are among my favorite things to watch even today. And as you guys all know, I'm a massive fan of gaming as well, particularly military shooters. So when I first heard that the History Channel was making historical video game series back in the day, I was immediately sold on the idea. These games, of course, were destroyed in sales by popular shooters of the day such as Halo, Call of Duty, and Battlefield, and were quickly forgotten by most gamers. But today, I want to take a closer look at some of the History Channel games and see if they are worth revisiting. So sit back, relax, smash that like button, because here we go.
It's hot in here, it's warm.
Are you having hot flashes?
I'm not having hot flashes.
Maybe you're going through male menopause.
Oddly enough, the History Channel has been making all sorts of games dating back to the late 1990s and early 2000s. But back then, they're focusing on mostly PC games like this one called History Channel Alamo Fight for Independence, or this one called History Channel Crusades Quest for Power, both PC exclusives. They even made a Pawn Stars PC game in 2013 that's available on their website. It's kind of like a flash game. It's also available on like iOS and Android. Not sure if it's still available today, but it probably isn't worth your time anyway. I never got to place one. Anyway, they also got into console gaming with games like Civil War Great Battles for the PS2 in the year 2000. But the games I really wanted to discuss here today are the ones that I have played personally, and those are the ones on the Xbox 360. Most of these also came out between the years 2007 and 2012. And they also received a PS3 and even a PS2 port of all of these games, as well as some of them being on other systems as like PC, or some of them on the PSP or even Vita. But like I said, we're mainly talking about the Xbox 360 version of these, as it's the only versions I've ever played any of them. So with that in mind, guys, let's jump in with our first game here, which is 2007's Civil War: A Nation Divided. Now, this game underwhelmed most critics at the time and received below average scores across the board, most likely because it came out the same year as Call of Duty 4 Modern Warfare, which, as we all know, changed the first-person shooter landscape forever, and it could not hold a candle to that kind of powerhouse. I mean, graphically, it's nowhere in the same neighborhood. Gameplay-wise, it's not even close to, and it, of course, doesn't have the online multiplayer experience that most Call of Duty fans were looking for. But if you guys dig deep enough, there is still fun to be had here for sure. You play as some of the biggest battles of the Civil War, including Gettysburg, Chattanooga, and Bull Run. Like I said, graphically, it looks pretty dated even by 2007 standards, and the gameplay and storyline, it leaves a little bit to be desired, and it just kind of plays slower than you're really used to these first-person shooters. You really think about the Call of Duty series, even though Call of Duties that were in World War II, they're using semi-modern weapons, being semi-automatic or fully automatic, whereas this one you're using, single-shot rifles where you have to reload every shot with a musket ball, and it's just kind of slower, grindy pace of a gameplay, and it didn't really connect with audiences around that time when the Call of Duty was bursting onto the scene. But like I say, these games are meant for a different audience. They're more historical. They're more meant to be educational. And I think the best thing about the History Channel games has to be the cutscenes where they break down the battles, and they're done by historians. And it's like a full-on documentary-style clip of the history of that battle. Who won? What tactics were used? The dates it happened, where it happened, why it happened. Those things are so cool to me. Like I said earlier, I was a huge fan of these style of shows and documentaries on the History Channel back in the day growing up, and I still am. I watch these kind of documentaries all the time. I'm a huge history buff, especially when it comes to warfare, so these games are really right up my alley. And they are, as you expect, very well done by the History Channel, and they're done at good ways of laying out the facts and educating you on that war, that particular battle. Anyway, overall, this game is just okay, and I would recommend playing it to someone who's more into history than they are into video games, or if they like both, I would recommend it to them. But later in the next year, in 2008, they released 2 more follow-up games by the History Channel. Both Battle for the Pacific and Civil War Secret War were much improved over the previous game that came out in 2007. Graphically, they looked much better, but they were still, of course, lacking behind AAA shooters of the day, especially like a Battlefield 3 or a Call of Duty 4. They didn't look anywhere near as good as that, but they looked okay for the time period. They look dated now. Anyway, Civil War Secret Missions is more or less just an expansion of the first Civil War game, just adding more battles, different weapons, different historical breakdowns, all while looking and running a little bit better, a little bit smoother, a little bit faster.
Bridge. It is up to Southern forces to break through this blockade and continue their assault against the
And
enemy.
later that same year, the History Channel released Battle for Pacific in the same year, and it jumped into the already super saturated World War II first-person shooter genre. Games like Medal of Honor Airborne, Hour of Victory, Call of Duty 1, 2, 3, and of course the biggest one of that year was Call of Duty World at War, which released that same year and destroyed Battle for the Pacific in sales to absolutely no one's surprise. If you look at these games side by side, it's easy to see why Call of Duty came out on top. Call of Duty's massive budget campaigns and their hugely popular online multiplayer put Battle for the Pacific to shame. But again, that does not mean this isn't a game worth trying. I rather enjoy its campaign. Yes, the AI is dumb and it takes the whole game incredibly easy. It doesn't look nearly as polished as Call of Duty World at War, but it has its charm. Again, I find myself really enjoying the historical breakdowns and the historical facts and the education they're trying to provide here. And I know learning isn't everyone's favorite thing to do while playing video games, but like I said, I've always been fascinated with historical conflicts. So this game was like a halfway decent way to combine that with a video game in my eyes. It probably doesn't hold up very well today, but not many World War II shooters from that time period can. If you think about the games you used to play back then, Call of Duty 2, Call of Duty 3, do those campaigns like stand out to you by today's standards? Not really. At least this one has something going for it with historical cutscenes. I think that's at least worth giving it a try if you're a fan of something like that.
And soldiers determined to hold the island at all costs. It would be a hellish fight, but if taken...
After losing a significant amount of money on those two games in 2008, it was a few years before our History Channel dove back into video games. They dabbled with a Nintendo DS game called History at Great Empires Rome, which was a real-time strategy game. Then they even made a PlayStation 3 exclusive Ice Road Truckers game in 2010 that was digital download only. And as you guys can imagine, it got some of the lowest review scores of any game ever on the PS3. I can't imagine it being any good. Anyway, it wasn't until 2011 when they released another full retail physical game with the History Channel branding. And this was History Channel Great Battles Medieval for the Xbox 360 and the PS3. This was again another real-time strategy game, and it was slightly above average reviews and still did not sell all that well. It stuck with the educational sections and the informing players on the actual battles that took place back in the day, which was nice to see. And it offers loads of scenarios from what I believe was the 100 Years' War, and it's a solid little RTS for console gamers, a kind of a genre that we don't get a whole lot of on consoles and more seem to be more PC based. There are a few here and there. This one is not terrible, but by far it's not the greatest one either. I think the best History Channel game ever made, however, was 2012's game, which was Legends of War Patton. Again, an RTS game, but it follows the career of legendary World War II General George Patton. This being a pretty later title in the Xbox 360 lifespan, it graphically looks much better than earlier releases. It is also has a robust and challenging campaign that is loaded with major historical battles from World War II. Their RTS elements gel really well in this. I really like the different units you can choose from and how you strategize to put them together and get your setups together and what your strategy is going to be, your angles of attack, things like that. It's all pretty well done. I actually really enjoy this game. If you're into RTS, I highly suggest it. And again, there is the historical educational side of the game, which again as well is done very well by History Channel as we would expect. Like I said, this is my favorite of all the History Channel games by a wide margin. I'm not a huge fan of RTS games. I do enjoy them occasionally, but this one is one of my favorites from that last console generations. I mean, other ones you can get like Halo Wars and things like that are also pretty decent, but this one I really enjoyed. And if you're a fan of History Channel like me, then you might want to check this one out. Sadly though, this was the last History Channel game ever made, at least for now. I do think at some point down the road they may try this again with this hybrid of educational video game thing going on. Who knows if they win and if they even will. But anyway, guys, that's all I have for today, you guys. I hope you all enjoyed. If you guys did, do me a huge favor, smash that like button. Make sure you guys are subscribed for more videos like this in your sub boxes daily. And until next time, guys, remember that it's always KMAC time somewhere. Until then, take it easy and peace out. Oh, and one more thing. Let me know if you guys played any of these games down in the comment section down below. I would love to hear you guys' thoughts on this. Did you guys play these back in the day? Did you guys hate them? Were you guys just too busy playing Call of Duty? Were you guys too busy playing Halo like I was most of the time? I'd love to hear you guys' thoughts on these games. Or if you guys plan on checking them out now, going back to them, I'd love to hear all that down in the comments down below. But like I said, next time, guys, take it easy. Peace out.
Ninja.